Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mike Francesa podcast on the Bet Rivers Network, brought to you by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos Tequila is brought to you by those who drink it. Week 12 in the National Football League, Football Friday, as we head towards Thanksgiving weekend. We're here on the Mike Francesa channel on the Bet Rivers Network on YouTube. It began last night with the snowy night in Cleveland, and Cleveland uh, at least gaining a measure of some salvation for this awful season by beating their hated rival, the Steelers. They're all hated rivals in that division. Everybody hates everybody, but it's very hard to win division games, even against teams that are having bad seasons in their buildings. It just is. It's hard to beat them. They all know each other. They all hate each other. They get up for the games. So that's not a surprise in any way last night, and it won't be a surprise in any of these leagues, in any of these divisions when somebody knocks somebody off. It just isn't because these it division games are different. These teams know each other so well. They get under each other's skin, and they always, even when they're running out the string, they care enough to register a victory. I mean, you could tell last night in frigid conditions, the snow coming down, typical Cleveland, okay? Those fans were loving that. Every one of them stayed. That game mattered to them. And Winston has given that franchise a lift. But the game mattered to them. It really did. And beating the Steelers is something they will gain a measure of good feeling about, that they at least put a dent into the Steelers, as they did recently to the Ravens. Not a surprise that they go out of division and lose the games, and then they come in division and win the games. It's not a surprise at all. It happens a lot, and you'll see it happen in every division. Um, Buys this week for the Jets, who've been making news, the Bills, the Falcons, the Bengals, the Jags, the Saints. A lot of debate on the Jets going forward now that the GM's gone. Listen, they have to clean house. The idea of anybody on that coaching staff coming back is ridiculous. I know Rex Ryan is, you know, outwardly politicking for the job. He's not going to get it. Um, I could create a scenario under which I would bring Rex back as the defensive coordinator, but only as a defensive coordinator. I don't think he would accept that, but that's the only way I would bring him back. I would give him standing. I would let him have his own little kingdom there, but I would only bring him back as defensive coordinator. He's a very good defensive coordinator, just like his father. He's not a great head coach, just like his father. Um, there's a lot of debate about Rodgers, and I really think most people have it wrong. Getting rid of him next year under the right scenario, if Woody does the right thing here, now that is, you know, trying to pull to an inside straight, getting Woody to do the right thing. But Rodgers is, as I've told you, is not the issue here for a year. They're going to have to go out and get a quarterback and develop him anyway. We know that. They can do that whenever they find him. Let him sit for a year, let him learn behind Rodgers. But next year, Rodgers should be the quarterback. Okay? The idea he's washed up is ridiculous. Right now, if he plays the rest of the games and plays them to the statistics he's putting up now, he will have one of the best years that any J quarterback's ever had. And he hasn't even played well. That's how good he is. Now, why isn't he throwing deep? Good question. There's two answers to that question. Number one, he's operating behind a badly organized, badly orchestrated, badly coached offensive line that has not taken advantage of the talent that it has and has had some tricky injuries. Number two, I think he's hurt. I don't know what the injury is. Could be to his ankle, could be to his knee, could be a hamstring, could be a hip. I don't know what it is, but it's clearly he is not stepping into his throws. He is getting rid of the ball quickly to help that he doesn't have to take that many hits, and he is throwing only with his upper body. He's only I know that when my knee's bothering me, and I've had knee problems my whole life, I hit the golf ball that way, where I just swing from the waist. I don't use my legs to swing to hit the ball. That's what he's doing with his throwing. He doesn't use his lower body to throw the ball. He's not throwing the ball down the field because he's hurt. He's playing, but he's clearly hurt. I don't know what the injury is, but he's got an injury. They've been hiding an injury. You're going to hear at the end of the season, oh, he played hurt since week 4. Or he played hurt since week 5. I don't know what week it is, but he's playing hurt. He is not the issue. You can bring him back and win with him next year. Listen, the kicker lost 2 games. The defense lost 2 games in the final seconds. You give me those 4 games right now, they're in the playoffs. But they didn't win any of them. And he hasn't been Rodgers. Listen, he's been okay. For Rodgers, he's been bad. For someone else, he's been okay. That's what he's been so far. I mean, like I said, he's got 17 touchdowns, 7 intercepts. I've watched every pass he's thrown this year. 4 of the intercepts are on him. 3 of the intercepts. Now he's could have had a couple more that he got lucky on. 3 of the intercepts aren't on him. They've dropped at least 4 touchdown passes, minimum. Okay, so he could be in the 20s in the TD passes easy, and he could have a few less interceptions. Remember, he doesn't throw interceptions. He's only had 1 year in his career where he ever threw double-digit interceptions. The man doesn't throw interceptions, which is a nice trait to have in a quarterback. They've been bad in the red zone because they can't run the ball. They can't run the ball in short yardage, and he doesn't have the leg quickness to keep enough plays alive on the move like Mahomes does. But, Mahomes has 15 touchdowns and 11 intercepts. Cousins has 17 touchdowns and 9 intercepts, just as an example. He's got 17 touchdowns and 7 intercepts, and they tell you he's washed up. I mean, plus, he's thrown for more yards than a lot of these quarterbacks have. I think he's 10th in the league in yardage. And he hasn't even thrown the ball for 300 yards in a game yet. It's not him. You can bring him back next year, but he comes back as a player. No power. Quarterback the team. You're not even going to decide who the offensive coordinator is. The team is. You want to have input into the offense? Obviously, you're Aaron Rodgers. Fine. But I'm going to give you the coaching staff. I'm going to give you the players. You're going to play football. That would be acceptable to me. Now, there's a lot that has to be done there. And you're asking, what did he do a lot? And he usually screws everything up. So you don't have a lot of confidence. Giants Sunday against the Bucs. Bucs have lost 4 in a row. They've played tough games. They've played tough teams. They've lost some heartbreaking games, like last week against their last game against San Francisco. They get Evans back. Mayfield's had a pretty good year. He's got 24 touchdown passes. Obviously, the headline is DeVito. He's not the story here, folks. Jones being done, that's the story. He's done because it's a financial decision. This is a twofold thing. The reason DeVito's playing is because they want to fill the stadium. All right? This idea that DeVito's going to be their future or something is just patently ridiculous. He might be their backup, but he's not going to be their quarterback. And, everyone talks about last year and the Magic. He was not very good last year. He was okay. He had one good game, one good second half. The guy got sacked at such a high rate, it was alarming. He got sacked 36 times in like 160 passes. His sack rate was like 17%, which is insane. His quarterback rating was like 23. And when he came in the game the first time against the Jets, they didn't even allow him to throw a pass. Now, does he have a little moxie? Yes. Do the fans like him? Yeah, they love him. That's great. So now and they put him in where he can move the ball this week because Tampa's defense stinks. And if the Jet defense shows up, they can actually win this game. They got a great chance. I mean, listen, let's be honest. They should be favored to beat. That's how bad the Cowboys have sunk. They should be, if the Cowboys get a 40 put on them this week by Washington, the Giants will actually be favored down in Washington. If the Giants win this week or play a really good game against Tampa, and Dallas gets destroyed again and gives up 40, Giants will be favored against the Cowboys. How can you make the Cowboys favorites against anybody? Or we pick them. I mean, there's nothing to choose from. But the Giants can win these next two games. They absolutely can. That's why, this is one of the reasons the bye week was one of the reasons. But also, these are games they can win. And with the first reason why this was done, the reason why it's not locked is because this will create some buzz, some energy, and it will help keep the fans coming, which is what they don't want empty ballparks. They don't want an empty stadium. Lock offers them nothing right now. If they were, over 500 and Jones got hurt, Locke would have been the quarterback because they think Locke's better. But the point is, and I'm not saying he's a lot better, but he's a more proven talent than DeVito is. But DeVito gives you, the fans love him. It creates a buzz. We'll see what happens. Okay, if he gives the team some energy, good. If he puts some energy through the building, good. If he creates a little excitement, good. But the Giants are still drafting a quarterback next year, folks. You can take that to the bank. They're drafting a quarterback. Jones is gone. He probably won't even be in the building the next 6 weeks. And they're going to draft a quarterback in the first round or make a move for a quarterback. I don't think there's a veteran quarterback out there that they can get or is worth getting. So I think they will, they will draft a quarterback in the first round. I don't think there's any way around that. Vikings and Bears. Vikings very quietly at 8-2. Really quietly at 8-2 when you think about it. First of all, the Lions have become a big deal. And secondly, the last couple of weeks, Donald hasn't been great. It was better last week. Bears have lost 4 in a row. It all started with the Hail Mary. They lost a heartbreaker last week to the Packers, and the quarterback played better. This will be a hard game for the Vikes. It'll be a tight game because these kind of division games are tight. Lions and the Colts. Colts come off a win. Colts are one of the two teams in the AFC looking for that last spot. I'll get to that in a couple of minutes. They're 5-6. It's funny. The NFL's about moments. It's about days. It's about days that symbolize things. Thanksgiving to me symbolizes that the league goes into overdrive. The stretch run begins when you sit down to the Thanksgiving games with family. And it's funny. You've always traveled during the Lion game. And how many times have you walked in and the game's on and you've said to somebody, and you're a casual NFL fan, and you said something, why are the Lions always on? They stink. Well, this year, the story is going to be not the Lions stink. People are going to try to get to see the Lions on Thanksgiving. And the topic of conversation going into the Dallas game and late in the Lion game, as the Lions will be winning on Thanksgiving, will be, hey, how good is this team? Is this team for real? Is this team going to the Super Bowl? And the answer to all those questions is yes. The Lions have outscored their opponents 336 to 177. They are approaching 2-1. Teams that outscore their opponents in the regular season 2-1 have a habit of going to the Super Bowl. Many of them have a habit of winning the Super Bowl. It does not happen very often. This team scores a ton of points. Why? Because they have terrific skill behind the best offensive line in the sport by a lot. Their offensive line is the single biggest force in the NFL at the moment. And when you put two terrific backs, a bunch of receivers, a very good tight end, and a quarterback who has fit the system really well. Who, if you blitz him, he's going to bury you. You have a team that scores points. 30 is a given. 40 is pretty much the norm, and 50 is not out of the question. If you give them a couple of cheap scores, 50 is not out of the equation. They're 9-1, and they're really good. And I don't think there's anybody in the NFC that can touch them. And I wouldn't be surprised if they got picked off once down the stretch, but I think 2 losses is probably max for them. I'd be surprised if they haven't won 2 losses the rest of for the regular season. Colts are 5-6. If you look at the AFC, Kansas City, Buffalo, Houston in that division, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and the Chargers are probably all going to the playoffs. Now, who's the other teams? Denver, Colts, Miami. Denver's got the better record. The Colts also come into their building. Miami, 4-6, has Pats, Green Bay, Jets, Texans, Niners, Browns, Jets. That's not an easy schedule, and the Jets will not be easy games. That's not an easy schedule. Colts they're 5-6, where right now they haven't had their bye yet. Dolphins are 4-6. They have this week the Lions, so they go to 5-7 most likely. I mean, I don't think they'll beat the Lions in Indianapolis. Might play them close, but I don't think they'll beat them. They play the Pats, and then at Denver. That Colt at Denver game is a huge playoff game, a big time game as a decider. And then they can finish the season running the table. They have the Titans, the Giants, and the Jaguars. Their last 3 games, the Colts. They can win all 3 of those games. So if the Colts can beat the Pats next week, and if they steal either the Denver game or this week Lion game, they can win 10 games. 9 will probably get them into the playoffs. Now, Denver has the Raiders this week. Then they have the Colts. Then they finish with 3 really tough games. They have now they're 6-5, remember, and they have the Raiders this week, so they go to 7-5. They have Colts, Chargers, at the Bengals, and then the Chiefs. They could lose their last 3 games, the Broncos, and if they lose the Colt game, then they could be in a tough spot. So that Colt win, Sean's going to know that Colt win is going to be enormous for them, because their last 3 games at Chargers, at Bengals, and then the Chiefs are very, very tough. So Pats, Dolphins, Colts, Dolphins, Broncos, one of those 3 is the other team in the AFC to join the 6 I gave you. Now, NFC, Lions, Eagles, Falcons, Minnesota. Most likely the Packers, most likely, not automatically, but most likely. And then you got to pick somebody out of the West where they're all tied. And you got to add another team. So the bottom line is Lions, Eagles, Falcons, Minnesota. If you want to throw Green Bay in, go ahead. Then you can add 2 more teams. And one of them's got to be a division winner out of the West. Cowboys at Washington. They're not going to go to Trey Lance. They're going to keep playing Cooper Rush. I think Lamb's ready to bail on this team. Watch. Watch him come up with an injury and not play for a couple of weeks. I could see that coming with him. I really can. And the Cowboys, let's be honest, their guys are basically shutting the year down. That's all there is to it. They are shutting the year down. Washington, do not be surprised if they really crank their offense up against the Cowboys. Chiefs come off their first loss against Buffalo. They play the Panthers this week, so they go to 10-1. Titans play the Texans. The Texans are not playing well, but they get the Titans this week. Broncos at 6-5 get the Raiders. Always a tricky game, but Raiders just not playing well. Broncos, Knicks is coming off an incredible game, an historic game for a rookie quarterback. 28 of 33, 307 yards, 4 touchdowns, no intercepts. Never done before in the history of the league. That the quarterback had 80% completions, 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and no intercepts in a rookie win ever in the history of the league. He could be the rookie offensive player of the year over Daniels, which you wouldn't have thought, but he really could. He's got 14 touchdowns and 6 intercepts right now, and if they make the playoffs, he's done a good job. Knicks. Niners, what are they doing? Are they really that bad? They have the Packers this week. Enormous game. Because if the Packers lose, that's another loss, and you're worried a little bit about them. Niners, it's going to come down to who wins that division. It really does. Cards 6-4, Seattle 5-5. Again, that division going to be crazy. Eagles 8-2, who are comfortable, but they get the Rams, who are 5-5. Rams, you wonder about that defense. That's the Sunday night game, and then the Monday night game is the Ravens and the Chargers. Another good game. 2 teams you think are going to the playoffs. Ravens get a break last night because the Steelers get beat. Chargers know they're not going to beat the Chiefs, so they're going to go as a wild card, but they're 7-3 off that very, very fortunate win against the Bengals last week. Fortunate because the Bengals came all the way back and then missed 2 field goals. Major playoff implications there also. So you got a lot of games this week where you're going to learn something from a playoff standpoint. Can the Colts surprise the Lions? Probably not. Can the Bears surprise the Vikings? Broncos and Raiders. Broncos have to keep winning. Niners and Packers. Cards and Seattle. Eagles at the Rams, Ravens, Chargers, as we put the pieces in. There's a couple of teams. Kansas City, they're fine. Buffalo, they're fine. Lions, they're fine. Eagles, they're fine. Everybody else, even the Falcons, who have a 2.5 game lead in their division, have to get their eye back on the ball. Because the Bucs schedule has just gone through a rough slate. The rest of the way, it's not hard. They could get back to winning ways. I think they probably will. Now, a couple of things here first. Number one, let me tell you about the newsletter, which they're all excited about. Sign up for the Mike Francesa Podcast newsletter at MikeFrancesaPodcast.com. MikeFrancesaPodcast.com. You'll get videos, special merchandise, and, of course, it says here so much more. So check it out, okay? They're still working on that, but they're excited by it. Players can pick up some excitement, maybe some money, maybe some bonus money when they play the same game parlays on college football and the NFL games to earn squares. The exclusive squares game offers additional chances at profit boosts, bonus bets, and, of course, those $10,000 jackpots in bonus money. So check it out. Go to the Bet Rivers app and download it for all of your wagering needs and all the extras that they give you. So check out the squares. Check out all the stuff for the NBA. Check out the newsletter. So all that good stuff. Now, Mike Francesa emails. Mike Francesa Podcast at gmail.com. We got a couple emails. Let's get to them. I haven't looked at them yet, so let's see what's on your mind as we head towards Thanksgiving. A couple of things here. You start to pay attention to college football, even if you're a marginal fan here, as the season winds down. Fascinating game this week that brings back days of yore. Army, Notre Dame, Yankee Stadium. There were times where that was the biggest game. You go back to the 40s, that was the biggest game in the country. Army, Notre Dame. They'd be playing for the national championship or the chance to be the best team in the country. Army's had an incredible year, but they're not on ND's level. That's all there is to it. I mean, they're not going to beat Notre Dame. And you can tell that by just what the point spread is. But hey, it's a game that matters. It's a game that offers something. So, if you haven't gone to a college game, I don't know how tickets are going at the stadium. I'm sure they're hot. So make sure there's some available. I don't think they'd sell it out, but who knows? But that's tomorrow. I think 7:00 for that game. Indiana unbeaten against Ohio State. For anybody who's been around college football, do you know how odd that sounds? I mean, Indiana had a couple of years where they had a decent team under Bill Mallory. Lee Corso had a couple of decent teams, but he could never beat Michigan and Ohio State. No matter what his team did. He once had a guy named Clifford, a quarterback, who was pretty good. It didn't matter what they could do. If they could win 8 games, it was a miracle. Having an Indiana team have a year like this, Curt Cignetti has done. His father, Frank Cignetti, was the coach at West Virginia. Curt Cignetti, who was the guy who built up James Madison and has won everywhere he's gone as a small college coach, has done not a good job. He's done a Houdini deal at Indiana. Now, it's a little different now than it used to be for this reason. You go out with the NIL and pluck players. I mean, they go and take the quarterback from Ohio University and take him, and that guy is an all-MAC player, and now he's had a great year for them. That's how you can get players. If you're smart and you know where to find them and you know what a good player looks like, you can go out and get him even if you're Indiana. You all don't have to go to Alabama and Georgia. So that can change the fortunes of a team. But, it's hard for me to take Indiana seriously. But, hey, Indiana has done an amazing job this year. Ohio State's lost. Ohio State almost lost to Nebraska. They buried Nebraska. Now, comparable scores doesn't get you analysis. It really doesn't. It doesn't work that way. That, you beat them I beat them by 30, you beat them by 3. That means I'm going to beat you. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. But you know what? I'm fascinated. 10-0 Indiana, ranked 5 in the country, against 9-1 Ohio State, which lost to Oregon by a point, number 2 in the country. Do I expect them to go in to the horseshoe and win? No. If they do, it will be stunning. Ohio State's a 10-point favorite against an undefeated Indiana team. But Indiana's beaten Michigan. Indiana buried Nebraska, which had a good chance to beat Ohio State. Indiana's been the more impressive team this year. But now they got to win at Ohio State. We'll see what happens. But to have somebody do that at Indiana is absolutely, absolutely stunning. It really is. It's an amazing, amazing achievement. All right, emails, MikeFrancesa@gmail.com. Thomas starts us off. Any chance that Deion's the coach in Dallas next year? I would doubt it very much. Deion has said he's staying in Colorado. He has signed a hotshot quarterback or made a deal with a hotshot quarterback. I think he's staying. I don't think that he is being seriously considered as a head coach in the NFL, and I do not think he will be in Dallas next year. I would look very seriously at Bill Belichick as being in Dallas next year. If he's not, he'll be in Jacksonville, I would think. Jason, Woody Johnson's decisions often raise eyebrows, and many are left wondering if there's a deeper issue at play. I don't know what that means. Uh, the abruptness of his actions could suggest a lack of patience or misunderstanding of league dynamics. I don't think Woody was abrupt. Now, they made Woody look like a clown by leaking that he wanted to bench Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if that really was something he was serious about, or he just said in a fit of pique, or did he not really say and mean? I don't know. That was leaked to make Woody look like a fool because nobody could take that seriously. Now, that was basically to show you, hey, I'm dealing with a crazy man. This guy wanted to bench Aaron Rodgers. Um, I don't know if that was true or not. Woody was not impetuous by getting rid of Saleh. Saleh was a bad head coach. What he didn't do right was he didn't bring in somebody to coach the team. He weakened the existing staff, and he did not even jettison Hackett, which was a big mistake. You took away his power, but you didn't jettison him, which made no sense. So Woody screwed it up, but it was not an impetuous move. Getting rid of the GM now, my understanding is the GM wasn't doing anything anyway. He had not been consulted by Woody on the firing of the head coach, so he was worthless anyway. So he was gone. The guy was there 6 years. That's not impetuous. Knock Woody for what he deserves to get knocked for. Don't knock him for being impetuous when he has a guy who's a GM for 6 years and the guy's got a terrible record, hasn't had a winning season, and hasn't had a team near a playoffs. That's not getting rid of a guy who's done his job. Saleh and Douglas did lousy jobs, but Woody screwed it up by elevating a interim coach, weakening his own staff. Let me finish with his question, though. The abruptness of his actions could suggest a lack of understanding, which I think is true. Do you think Woody Johnson can foster an environment that attracts the best in the game? I don't know. Woody is an NFL outsider. That hurts him. Now, there's two ways to do this. Going to a search committee is not the way to do it. Woody could hire a general manager and let him pick the coach, or he could hire two different people, hire a coach and hire a general manager. Now, that's a little trickier because you got to get them on the same page. With the Jets right now, personnel is not the main issue. Coaching is. This team they have coming back can win with a couple of subtle changes that are not very hard to do. They need to strengthen the defense in terms of the run support. They gave away, they had injuries in key spots, and they gave away the guys who were very good at playing the run. That has to be refortified, and it's an easy thing to do. Getting guys to rush the quarterback is hard. Getting guys who can run stop is not hard. Now, they have talent. They need coaching. I don't think that the average fan understands the depths to which the Jets were incredibly badly coached and led from a football standpoint. It was not only a zero, it was a negative. That's how bad it was. It can change quickly if they pick the right guy. Adam, should the Knicks fans feel disappointed that Rose didn't trade for Mitchell watching the Caps team? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The Cleveland coach is very good. He's always been very good. He's always been a favorite of mine, and he's very good. Obviously, I'm surprised at 16-1. I'm not surprised at having a really good year. I thought they would. Um, but that's not something. I didn't love the Towns trade because it was going to change the Knicks in a way that I thought was going to be hard to get them the rest of the way, and I didn't want to lose DiVincenzo. Now, Towns has been very good offensively, as we know. The Knicks have become a much better offensive team. They are weakened dramatically defensively because they don't have any rim protection and they don't rebound like they did. Um, they still aren't complete. I've told you that. And they're still a little ways away, but they had to get Randall away. They have an interesting team now, but it's not a championship team yet. Eli, this is from Colin. Eli is a no-brainer for the Hall of Fame. I don't know if he's a no-brainer. He's a no-brainer for me. I don't know he's a no-brainer for everybody. To me, the idea that he is a two-time Super Bowl MVP, leading his team through those playoffs and leading them to great victories in the postseason, plus being incredibly durable and being in the top 10 lifetime in collective stats. Okay. Plus, he was a winning quarterback with a franchise that wasn't always putting a very good product on the field. He wound up a 500 regular season quarterback, but that's because the later years really hurt him. To me, he's a Hall of Famer. Yes, I have no doubt he's a Hall of Famer in my mind, but I think some people differ, but I think he clearly is. I think his durability was highly underrated. That's true. Plus, he was very good at coming from behind. And he was also a very good big game quarterback. So to me, hey, there's only 6 guys who have ever been two-time Super Bowl MVP winning quarterbacks. Mahomes is one. There's 5. There's the other ones in Eli, and all the other ones are in the Hall of Fame, and they're immortal players. Eli belongs in the Hall of Fame. Who do you think is a better head coach, Mike Tomlin or Jim Harbaugh? Well, that's a very good question. They're both good coaches. They are very different. Very different. If I had to start a franchise and rebuild it tomorrow, I would pick Harbaugh. If I had the right pieces, especially on defense, I might pick Tomlin to coach my team. I think it would really, my decision, I think it's close between the two of them. My decision would be based on the personnel and where I was as a franchise. But if I needed to change the culture, I would use Harbaugh to do it because I think he would do it in a quicker fashion than Tomlin would. But I am not knocking Tomlin. They are both very accomplished, and their records indicate that they are very accomplished from that standpoint. So we will see you early in the week. We'll see you this weekend after the Giant game. And we will have our football preview on Wednesday. We will do our football stuff on Friday, and then we'll have a very busy weekend next weekend. As I don't know how much people are working this week. It depends. Some people don't work at all week. Some people work Monday. Some work Monday and Tuesday. Nobody works Wednesday anymore. So enjoy your week, but we'll talk to you over the weekend. We'll see you later.